How to do this left and right handed. Oh, I'm supposed to point here. Oops, I'm this one. That's what I want to see right there. Okay, there's something on here I want y'all to see. Y'all can see this, right? I'm supposed to stand. Y'all can see this, right? There's something on this slide I want you to see. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's up to y'all to figure out what's going on. But this is what I tell people. See this little dandelion right there? That's the first bloom of the season. And all those bees came out to take a whiff because it smells so good.
You got to do better than that.
Apparently.
This way.
Apparently. There's something on there I want you to see, okay? I'll tell you about it later. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to somebody. I'm going to introduce you to Walter Wright. There's nothing that I'm saying tonight that's original. Okay, I didn't dream all this up. I studied this, but I didn't dream it up. But I'm going to introduce you to somebody named Walter Wright. Between the years 1990 and 2012, Walter wrote 39 articles about the subject that I'm covering tonight, checkerboarding for swarm control. 30 of those articles were published in Bee Culture magazine, and 9 of them were published in American Bee Journal. And I read them. But as a matter of fact, when they were being written, nobody took Walter very serious, because he didn't start keeping bees until he was 60. You know, he was fixing to retire. And everybody kind of thought, well, you know, who is this guy? Why is he telling us how to keep bees? He just started. So I tried to figure out who Walter was. So I checked his background. Don't y'all hate that when somebody checks your background? Okay. So I learned a lot about Walter. I was trying to figure out whether I could believe him or not. So I found out that Walter was a straight A student in high school. And immediately after high school, he joined the Air Force. He wanted to learn aviation electronics. He joined the Air Force so he could get an education in electronics. And he worked on airplanes, and he went to school, and he learned all about aviation electronics for several years. And he got really good at it. And of course, he stayed in the Air Force. That was mostly his career. That's what he did. But he got shipped overseas, and he started working on certain installations. They call them security something. But what it basically boiled down to, he worked on spy satellites. And he did that for several years. And of course, he had to remain anonymous wherever he was because of what he did. He worked for the United States government overseas, gathering intelligence on people who were not our friends. But after he did that several years, he got brought back to the United States. From there, he started working on the Saturn V rockets, the rockets that carried us to the moon. He kept working in the Air Force, but he got put in NASA. And after he did that, they put him on the space shuttle program. He designed the entire electronic circuitry for the space shuttle. And people that worked with Walter said, if you could tell Walter what color a wire was and where it was located on the space shuttle, he could tell you what that wire did, what that wire controlled. He didn't have to look at a schematic. 200 miles of wire in the space shuttle, and he knew what every piece of it did. So can I trust what Walter says? I think so. So I've introduced you to Walter. All right, now, I'm going to tell you, Walter's powers of observation were beyond anything that we can even imagine. His wife said that Walter would take a telescope out, and he would set it on his back deck. He would focus that telescope on one flower bloom and watch it for hours because he wanted to know what was going on. That's how intense he was in trying to figure things out. But Walter said that honeybees are motivated by two things, just like every other creature in this planet, on this planet, motivated by two things. Number one, survival. Am I going to live? Number two, the generation of a reproductive swarm. Reproduction. Two things, survival and reproduction. If you don't believe people are motivated by those two things, go ask a 20 to 25-year-old male. Are you hungry? Yes. Do you want to reproduce? Yes. Every creature on this planet. So why not bees? Okay. Now, the bees will decide which path to follow, which thing they're going to do in the early spring. And the bees look up to make that decision. They examine what's above them to determine whether they're going to try to survive or whether they're going to generate a reproductive swarm. They look at what's above them. Once they have set a course, it is difficult to get them to change that decision. You ever try to stop a swarm? It's hard to do, right? So, what we have to do is to get them, forget about this, and decide on survival of the colony. So, all right. Now I'm going to bore you a little bit. Y'all already know all this stuff. Okay, so now would be a good time for you to sleep. But, if you're paying attention, what is a swarm? Easy enough. Swarms are a natural part of the reproduction of a honeybee colony. That's how they reproduce. Got it? Can everybody hear me okay? It includes approximately 1/2 of the bees, between 40 and 60% of the bees from the original colony. It includes bees of all ages, all castes, wax builders, foragers, and the queen. And the originating colony will contain queen cells about to emerge, lots of honey, lots of pollen, and brood. So when they split, everything's just about even. Now I got a question for you. I want you to think about this. Which is the new colony? I've always wondered about this, and I'm not really sure. Which one's the new colony? The originating colony or the swarm? Got any ideas?
Original colony.
Everybody says the swarm is. No, it's not. It's got the old queen and all the old bees. And the originating colony, in 3 weeks, they're going to have a new queen, and they're going to have a whole new genetic line. So the new colony is the original colony. Makes sense so far? Okay. Now, here's another question for you. Oops. Is the swarm good or bad? Well, it's good. Does it mean you're a bad beekeeper? No, it means you got a box full of good, strong, healthy bees, enough to swarm. It's good. Good. It means you have free bees. Now, I have to qualify this. If they're where you can reach them on the ground, and you can put a box down and knock them in it, that's free bees. But if they're 25 feet high, and you get on the ladder, you never notice when you get in a swarm, you can't get that ladder in the right place. And you always have to reach out like this. They're not free if you got to spend $20,000, $5,000 for the ambulance, $10,000 for the hospital stay, $5,000 more for the x-rays and the MRI. They're not free. But you did get $150 or $200 worth of bees out of it. So if you can reach them, they're free. If you can't, you better think about it a little bit. Okay? All right, it's good. It means you have free bees. It's bad. It means the production of the colony will be significantly impacted. You won't get nowhere near as much honey if your colony swarms. 60,000 bees in a colony can produce 3 times as much honey as 30,000 bees in a colony. That's how that math works. So the more bees you have in there, the more honey you're going to get out of that colony. And if they swarm, you've cut it in half. Less than half. It's bad. Will the original colony survive, or will the swarm survive? 40% of colonies that swarm, either the original colony dies or the swarm dies. You know, if that queen goes on a mating flight and she don't get back, that original colony is going to die. If the swarm don't find the right place or get caught up by a beekeeper that knows how to take care of them, they're going to die. So it's bad. You don't know if the swarm's going to die or the original colony is going to die, but it's a 50% chance that one of those two are going to die anyhow. So it's bad. But I'll tell you this. I don't know if y'all can see this or not. That's a swarm. You can see all those little bees up there in the air. A swarm's good. If you're a 4-year-old and you get to see one of the wonders of nature. This was my son, a swarm that came out of one of my hives in 2012. And that boy, from the time he could move, he wouldn't hold still his entire life until he was standing in front of that swarm. He went out, and a swarm came out, and he stood there. He didn't move, not a muscle, until that swarm hit settle. He was amazed. So a swarm's good if you're a 4-year-old, and you get to see something like that. I'm getting off the subject. I better get back. All right, I got 2 numbers here. These are interesting numbers. Back to Walter. Walter says that he had 130 colonies. And the methods that he, after his observations and the methods that he developed, he had a 100% success rate. 0 swarms out of 130 colonies for at least 5 years. Does it work? Ask Walter. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the end of winter. This is what everybody does, okay? This is what you're taught. This is what you read about in the books. This is what you're taught. This is probably what most of y'all have done in the past, okay? This is the end of winter. The bees are in a big cluster, and they got honey above them. When this says, I'm going to let y'all know, when this says empty, that means it's drawn comb. There's nothing to do with foundation. You don't want to use foundation in any of this, okay? If you don't have anything, any drawn comb, wait till you do. Because if you put some foundation in some of these things, it's not going to work, period, okay? The bees will ignore it. But this is the end of winter. And so what we do is we go out, and conventional wisdom tells us to reverse the brood boxes. Let's change these. Boom, and we do it. Anybody done that? Nobody? Okay. You have and you have. There's 2 problems with that. One, see this small cluster you left? If it gets down to 20 degrees, there's not enough bees in there to keep that little cluster warm. They're going to die. And if the queen's in that part of the cluster, you just killed your colony. Number 2, you remember me telling you about they looking up? They're going to look up and figure out what to do. Look here, what are these bees seeing? What are these bees seeing? Solid honey all the way across. We got plenty of food. Let's go swarm. Everybody with me so far? All right, I'm going to get back to that last picture in a few minutes. I mean, a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, okay? The end of winter again. Here we go. Bees are all clustered up. So we go out there and we start talking about checkerboarding. Okay, checkerboarding. Yeah, we can do that. We won't have a swarm. So this is what we do. Conventional wisdom, checkerboarding. Boom. Switch a lot of frames around. They probably won't swarm. But it's not for the reason that you think. You think that you made an opening in the brood nest. I opened the brood nest up. They're not going to swarm. Let me tell you what you did. Okay. This is like somebody coming into your house and taking the living room and putting it where the kitchen is. Taking the kitchen, putting it back in the bedroom. Taking the bedroom, putting it out on the front stoop. And you walk into your house and you say, what happened? Where do I go? What do I do? Well, when Miss Queen is exposed to this, first thing she's going to do is shut down. I don't know where to lay eggs. Where's the brood? Where's the cluster? Where are those bees that's supposed to be keeping me warm? She's going to shut down. I don't know what to do. Between 5 and 7 days, she's going to stop laying until they figure things out and get things organized back like they want them. And if she's laying between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs a day, and you're trying to build a population up right before the honey flow, and she shuts down, that's 8,000 to 10,000 bees that you need, that you're not going to have because you did this. And there's not enough bees in there to swarm now. Yeah, they might not have swarmed. You didn't help yourself as far as honey production goes. Still with me? It's easy to understand when somebody points it out to you, right? I mean, you get it? You get it? Everybody okay? All right. So, back to the end of winter. Here we go. Let's do something different. All right, end of winter. Walter comes out and he looks at it and he says, boom. Whoops. Back up one. Now, Walter had a specific target where he wanted his bees at the end of winter. He wanted 0 bees in his bottom box. He wanted bees just entering the top super. Just getting into the top super. So he wanted most of the bees in the middle super, in the deep. I forgot to ask y'all, is this how y'all winter y'all's hives? 2 deeps on medium? 2 deeps. And a sugar bowl. No sugar bowl. Okay. Good luck. Oh, but anyhow, let's go look. Let's ask Walter. Okay, Walter, we checked out checkerboarding. We checked out reversing the boxes. What should we do? Bam. Walter says, do this. Oops, wrong button. Bam. What? Alternate honey and drawn comb. Now, what does this accomplish? Think about bees in a tree 140 million years ago. They've gone through all this evolution. What did they learn about? If I look up and I see honey, we can do a swarm. If I look up and I see empty comb, we need to survive. We need to make honey. We need to bring back honey. So when these bees look up, guess what they're seeing? Empty comb all the way to the top. Now they're not going to starve. They got just as much honey as they did right then. But now, they see empty comb. Time to survive. We don't have enough food. Time to survive. Now what these bees will do, you won't even move these two boxes. These bees will look up, they'll start packing this full of honey as soon as the flow starts, and they'll start enlarging the brood box. They'll come back down. Because they're trying to put honey up here. Boom. Okay. There's a problem with the whole thing. It just looks so easy. I'll go out there and do that any time. Can't do it. Walter, observe this very closely. Timing is critical. If you don't do this at the right time, I'll tell you, it don't work. Now, I know it works not because of my success, but by my failures. It works in direct proportion to how well I follow the instructions. You got it? If I mess up, that hive's going to swarm. If I do it right, it won't. I've got 20 hives, 19 of them did not swarm. One of them did. And it was the one that I messed up with. So I know that it works by my failure. Not because I'm such a great beekeeper, but because I'm not. I just follow the instructions. Okay. Timing is critical. Okay, Walter, you're going to like this part. Tell us when. I got to figure out what button to push. When, Walter? This is easy. Okay, now y'all try to keep up. At the time when the elm trees bloom. Okay, as soon as you see an elm tree bloom, do it. Okay, oh, wait a minute, you said. Many years ago, Dutch elm disease came through and killed all the elm trees around here, so I don't have no elm trees. I can't go by that. Okay, all right, we got something else for you. If you don't have any elm trees, all you have to do is 4 weeks before the maple trees bloom. That's when you do it, 4 weeks before the maple. Did I tell y'all, Walter, watch these things? All right, 4 weeks before the maple trees. You know exactly when they're going to bloom, so go back 4 weeks and do it. Y'all are looking at me like I'm a nut. Okay, what maple trees? Silver maple, red maple, which ones? Okay, so y'all are confused about maple trees. All right. Easy enough. Everybody's got redbud trees, and there's only one kind. So if you go back 5 weeks before the redbuds bloom, that's when you do it. Exactly, wait a minute, y'all are still looking at me. Exactly 5 weeks before the redbud. All right. Okay, so everybody don't have redbud trees. But you know, you got apple trees, or you know where some is. So 8 weeks before the start of the apple blossom. Okay? Everybody's got that, right? Everybody knows when that's going to happen. Not really? This lady right here, she's looking at me like a... I'm going to move away from her or she's going to kill me. All right. Okay, so let's put it in beekeeper terms. All right. 30 days before the date of the first swarm last year. Who had a swarm last year? I want y'all to watch this. You had a swarm? What's the date they swarmed?
Sometime in 2018.
The problem is, you don't know something, right? What?
Apple trees right around May 10th for here, for sure.
He had a swarm. Anybody else have a swarm? He couldn't help me. He couldn't tell me what date it swarmed. Did you? Anybody else know?
It was a bad day.
It was a bad day. Okay. So there's an issue. We're not doing something right with our beekeeping. Right? All right. So I'm going to change this. Okay, I met this guy. Are you confused yet? First of all, are you confused? I am.
Just look.
I couldn't keep up with all that stuff I had to. But Walter could. But I met this guy named Charles Isley. He's a beekeeper from northwest New Jersey, still alive. He's a good guy. He's a very, very private individual. He don't like to be bothered, and I know that because I pestered him to death. You know, when I first heard about this and I heard about what he was doing, I had to get in touch with him and say, Charles, I need to talk about this. And he opened up to me, and he was really good, but he was a very private person. But anyhow, let me tell you about Charles. He turned Walt's observations into a science by introducing growth degree days into the checkerboarding techniques. Any farmers in here? You know what a growth degree day is?
Yep.
Nobody else does.
No.
Okay. You do too. Nobody else does. So I'm going to give you a science lesson. Okay? I think. I want y'all to understand about growth degree days. If I can get the right slide. All right. Growth degree days, also called growing degree units, or heuristic. Heuristic means simple. Heuristic tools in phenology. Growth degree days are a measure of heat accumulation used by horticulturists, gardeners, and farmers to predict plant and animal development rates, such as the date a flower will bloom, an insect will emerge from dormancy, or a crop reach maturity. That's right? Growth degree day. It's a unit of heat. All right. In phenology. Okay. Let's check phenology. That sounds like a big word. Nobody knows what that means either, but let's figure out what it means. Phenology is a study of periodic plant and animal life cycle events and how those are influenced by seasonal and interannual variations in climate as well as habitat factors. And then I'm not going to read all the boring part about where the word comes from, but I'm going to skip down here to where it says examples. Include the emergence of leaves and flowers, the first flight of butterflies, and the first appearance of migratory birds, and the date of leaf coloring and fall in deciduous trees, the dates of egg laying of birds and amphibia, or the timing of, this is the important part, developmental cycles of temperate zone honeybee colonies. You can predict when certain things will happen by knowing the unit of heat measurements when it happens. Or, what? When do you plant your corn? Growth degree days. When do you plant potatoes? Growth degree days.
Good Friday.
Good Friday. Yeah. We used to do when the moon, the dark nights of March. Is that when we? Yeah. That's when I used to do it down in North Carolina. But the fact is, you can predict when a flower's going to open if you know that growth degree day.
And there's an app for that too.
I'm going to get to that. I got this really great story about that app. I'm going to get to that too. Okay. But you got to be careful. I'll explain it too. Okay. Oh, and by the way, predict the timing of the developmental cycles of temperate zone honeybee colonies. If you're between the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle, that's where you live, temperate zone. Right? All right, here we go. Boom. All right. 2 more numbers. These are Charles's numbers. 100% success rate every year. Every year. People argue with him. That don't work, Charles. And Charles says, you know. It works. I know it works by my failures. All right. So, let's figure out what we have to do with these growth degree days. Boom. When? Okay, Charles, when do I need to Tell me about these growth degree days. When the growth degree days accumulate to 50 for any given year, that is the day to checkerboard in or super. That's what Charles says. But my personal experience has found out that it's not 50. It's a little bit earlier than that. I think it's about 48, 49. You know, that's my personal experience. This is what Charles says. You can either do what Charles says or you can do what I'm suggesting. It don't matter to me, you know. But I have found that if I go all the way, if I don't get out there by 52, I might as well not do it. Forget it. If I do it when it's 51, maybe 50% chance it will work, 50% that it won't. If I go to 52, it won't work. If I'm at 48, I'm hitting the nail on the head. So that's what Charles says. Now, let's figure out how to make this work for us. Okay? You determine growth degree day every day of the year. When you accumulate 50, between 48 and 52, it is time to checkerboard in a super. Again, I'm going to say, forget this number right here. You know, go early. It's got to be there when the bees are taking a look. If it's not there when they look, you're not. 52, they've looked already. I can guarantee you that. They've already decided by 50. So let's figure out how we can use these. Growth degree days. This is how you calculate them. The formula for determining growth degree days is as follows. Minimum temperature for that day plus maximum temperature for that day divided by 2 minus 50 is a growth degree day. This is the formula. Minimum plus maximum divided by 2 minus 50 equals a growth degree day. All right, so how do I use that? I'm going to show you some examples so you'll get it. All right, 121. 121. This is actually the first day of the year you get growth degree days. See all these zeros? 121. 64, maximum temperature, 46, minimum temperature equals 110. 110 divided by 2 equals 55. 55 minus 50 is 5. That gives you 5 growth degree days. Got it? So I put that in my daily growth degree day column, 5. And then I accumulate. The next day, I had 3. I add 5 plus 3, that gives me 8. And then I had no more, so I continue to carry to 8. Remember, negative numbers equal 0. If you get a negative number, do not take growth degree days off. It just stays at 0. There's no such thing as a negative growth degree day. You don't go backward. You can only go forward. Now I'm going to give you more examples. Okay, for Carmel, the area that I live in, the day to checkerboard is 3:6. Okay, so let's look at 3:6. Here we go. I've got 45. I added 3.5 on 228. That makes it 49. And that's really when I should have done it that year. Okay? But anyhow, by 3:6, I crossed the 50. Everybody getting it? Is it helping? Making you think? Okay, let's look at something else. Okay. Now, I did some, I was working with Danny in Napanee, and I was calculating it for him. So this is his chart. Okay. 4-3. Look at 4-3 right here. Got 2. Now it's my 51. Everybody getting it? Okay. Now I have to caution you. Okay, I'm going to show you something else too. Okay. You have to pay attention on what's ahead. You can't be watching it and it say 30 growth degree days, 32 growth degree days, and forget about it. Oh, I got 20 more growth degree days. You can't do that. You have to know what's coming. You have to look down the road. You have to pay attention. You have to be observant, such as Walter was, to get this right. Because this can happen right here. Where am I at? Right there. I got 25 growth degree days. And then it got warm. I got 13 the next day. And then I got 18 the next day, and it put me way over. And right down here, I had plenty of time. See that? I had 25. I ain't got to worry about it this week. Yes, you do. You have to know what's coming. And it's kind of funny. If you know what's coming, you might be out there putting superzone with it 24, 25, 30 degrees, and your friends are going to think you're a nut. Because when did you put superzone? Oh, when the dandelions bloom, right? Y'all heard that before, right? You're too late by the time dandelions bloom. Let's look back for a second. Uh-oh. I blew your machine up. Let's look back. I might be out there at 49, putting supers on with a maximum temperature of 33 degrees. And all my beekeeping friends think, he's nuts. And then when I take 3 supers of honey off of that one hive, I think, and you are nuts. Paid one letter up. You might be out there. First week of March. Is that when you put supers on? No, you wait till it's warm enough. It's got to be 60 degrees before I get out there. Guess what you're doing wrong? Okay. Not going to elaborate on that kind of stuff. Let's go forward. All right. All right. All right, now, there's an app for that, right? I'm going to tell you about this. The best information you can get to do this is going to be that thermometer sitting on top of those hives out there. Okay? My hives have a microclimate of their own. They're about 100 yards from my house. But right where they are, there's an earth berm around 3 sides. They're completely protected by wind. And the sun shines right straight on them. It's 1.5 degrees warmer on top of them hives than it is at my house. Okay? The best information you can get is that thermometer sitting on top of your hives. But if you're lazy, okay, which I get it. I mean, you know, I get it. Don't misunderstand me. I get it. You can find a growth degree calculator. This is the website. You know, you can take a picture of that or write it down if you want to. But I have to give you a warning about this growth degree calculator. It's they market stuff to farmers. Syngenta, Greencast Online. And sometimes you get free access to this growth degree calculator. And sometimes they want you to fill out a form and they ask you all these questions. And they're going to ask you what part of agriculture are you involved in and stuff like that. And you have to be creative. I'm not telling you to lie, okay? But you have to be creative sometimes. Do you mow your grass? Yes? All right. You're in lawn maintenance. You plant a garden? You're in food production. Okay? You have to be creative sometimes to get access to this Greencast Online. And what they'll get you is you'll be using it, you know, for 3 weeks, and right about the time you need it, you're going to go on there and it's getting close, you're going to go on there and they'll say, you can't get it, you need to fill out this form. So you have to be ready with your creative answers, okay, to get access back to that line. They got you hooked on it, then they want to send you all this junk email, so you have to fill out these forms, okay? All right. That's where you can find it. Okay, so I missed it. I was asleep in Westfield, and it went from 25 to 58, and I missed the whole thing. So what do I do now? All right, as soon as you know it, play supers on your colony. They don't need to do all this checkerboard stuff. It's you beyond that. Get an empty hive ready. Okay? Swarm kit, whatever you want to call it. I mean, be ready. It's going to happen. Place swarm traps near your apiary. Empty nuke box, put it 15 feet off the ground, you know. Not way out here like that, but right here, you know, where you can get to. Here's a good one. This is what people forget. Be very gentle when expecting a colony. Be aware that there might be queen cells in there. Anybody who don't know this, there's a developmental time when queen cells, the queens inside those are very fragile. Okay? And this is what we do. This is what we do when we take out queen cells. I'm going to borrow a sheet of paper right here. This is what we do when we're expecting our colonies, right? We pull these out, you know, and we look at this. We look at this, you know, and then we do just like this. And look at the other side. We flip that queen cell upside down, and if she's in that fragile development stage, we just killed her. And then we want to know why she didn't hatch. What happened? I killed her. Oops, I dropped it. That's all right, I'll just put it back in. You know, it's 3 or 4 days there that handling a queen cell is just like handling a piece of real fine glass. You break just like that. Break that queen. Or if she lives, she might not have wings. You know, she might not have a leg. You did something when you did this. Okay. All right, be gentle. When you're looking, be aware. Queen cells may be present. What else can you do to keep them from swarming? Well, make a split. Do a controlled swarm. They're swarming, but you're doing it instead of them when you make a split. And people ask me, well, should I put the queen in the split, or do I put the queen cell in the split? It could be argued either way. The natural way would be to put the queen with the split. Just take her out, but as long as they got queen cells in there, just take her out, put her in the split. And you don't have to take out a lot of bees, not as many as you're going to lose if they swarm. You know, a frame or two, and put the queen in there, and make sure they're in a nice place, and make sure that, you know, make sure you got queen cells in that original hive. But you don't want to leave any more than 3 queen cells in there, because sometimes you open up, and if you're thinking about swarming, you pull that up, you got 15 queen cells hanging right here in a row. If you leave all those in there, they're going to swarm, and then they're going to swarm again, and then they're going to swarm again, and they will literally, what they call it, swarm themselves out. At the end, there'll hardly be a tennis ball size handful of bees in there, because each one of those queens are going to try and go and take a group of bees with them. So you want to leave, I wouldn't leave any more than 3. You know, some people cut it back to 2. I like, in case something happens, you know, I like to be a second chance, you know. So I like to leave 2. All right. Of course, replace the frames you removed to make that split with empty frames. Now, here's one. We're all guilty of doing this. I know I am. We see these honey-bound frames, and we know they're going to swarm. So we say, well, if we take those out and go extract that out, we can put them back in, and the queen will have somewhere to lay so they won't swarm. Okay? But the problem with that is, you went out there and you went through 4 hives, and you took honey-bound frames out of each one of those 4, And then you went back to the house. You just went through all those hives. You went back to the house and you extracted them. And you say, well, I went through 4 hives. I got kind of tired. I'll put them back in tomorrow. Right? Is that what we do? Yeah. Don't do that. She needs somewhere to lay. She might need somewhere to lay right now. Okay? So if you're going to do that, you either have empty frames with you and you switch them out right then, or if you only have 2 hives and you have to go extract them to get it back, go extract them and get them back then. Don't wait till tomorrow. You know, if you're trying to keep those bees in there, giving her somewhere to lay is going to be the best thing you can do to keep them in. If you take it out, she can't lay in a blank space. You want to keep them in, keep them in. Okay. I told you I would visit this picture right here again. So here I am back. The brood cluster is only in the 2nd deep. This is back to reversing the hive bodies. There you go. Brood cluster is in the 2nd deep. Boom. All right, now you reverse them. Now there's some data out there that suggests this will work. Okay? They look up, they see nothing for a long way. All the bees, you're not leaving a little bit of bees hanging out in the middle down here without nothing. You know, they're all in the 2nd box and you reverse them. There's some data that suggests that will work. How much it will work, I don't know. You can't predict that. They might swarm, they might not, but there's some data that suggests that will work. Okay, for next year. That would be for the year after this one, right? Not this year, but for next year. If you missed that time, you want to replace the queen this July. I replace all my queens every July. People ask me, how long do your queens live? I say they live from July to July. That's it. A queen that is less than 1 year old is 1/3 as likely to swarm as a queen that's over 1 year old. It has to do with her pheromone production. A young queen produces lots of pheromone. Part of that trigger for them to swarm is the dilution of the pheromone. A less than 1 year old has a lot of pheromone and they can't dilute it out enough. Okay. But a queen that's over 1 year old or getting close to 2 years old, her pheromone, the strength of their pheromone diminishes with age. And they're 3 times as more likely to swarm than a less than 1 year old queen. And each bee gets some of that pheromone. You got 60,000 bees in that hive, and they're spreading that pheromone out between all of them. They know whether they're swarming or not. And if it gets below a certain level, that triggers. Okay? A little bit complex, but that's how it works. Now, raise and use queens from hives that did not swarm. Part of that swarming instinct is genetic. Okay, if you catch a swarm and you use that to raise queens from, they're already genetically inclined to swarm. Okay, got it? So if you had a hive that did not swarm, use that one to raise queens. And people say, I can't raise queens. Yes, you can. I have another talk for that. Okay, you can raise queens. Okay, it's not that hard. Use those hives for your genetic base. You call somebody, get a queen. I call Alan over here. Alan, you got a queen? Where'd she come from?
Swarm.
Well, don't get that one. Find something else. Use growth degree days to checkerboard in our super. Watch for the elm trees to bloom. Here's a good one. Keep good records. So when I asked you when was your swarm last year, you can give me an answer as opposed to 2018. That's like the guy, it's another story entirely. It's like the guy, I was involved in some experiments doing mic checks. I was doing them for a study at Purdue. I was doing this thousands. And I got to this one guy, and he says, I don't have any mites. You don't have to check my hives. Okay? How do you know? I checked them. Okay, when did you check them? He says, it was 2016. He said, I checked them July of 2014. He didn't have no mites. He checked them. Keep good records. So when I ask you when you do the last mite count, you can tell me. Don't say, oh, it was, oh yeah, let me think about that. Mike, was it last, I don't know. Okay. Best of luck. Need a lot of that if you're trying to keep them from swarming and they already decided. Okay. All right, here I'm back. This is what I want you to see. You hear me talking about keeping good records? If y'all think this is a swarm, this is not a swarm. You want to know what this is? This is beekeeper error. Y'all know what mite away quick strips are? You're not supposed to pull the paper off. Well, when I separated the two, I pulled part of the paper off the one side of the other one, and I didn't realize it. And I put it in that hive right there, and they didn't like it a daggone bit. Every bee in that hive came out. But you know what? In an hour and a half, around an hour, they all went back in. And I learned something. Okay? Not only do you need to keep good records, I do this a lot. I take a lot of, if I see a swarm, I take a picture of it. I know when and where it was, the date, the telephone tells me. You know, when I want to go back and know when my last swarm was. You don't have to keep up with it. You got a picture of it. You know what date it was taken. That's for your information. Just for you. But I learned something. I'm a beekeeper. I'm human. I make mistakes. Guess what? You will too. One more thing I learned. The bees can fix it. You know? So don't get uptight about beekeeping.
So they can fix stupid.
Probably better than a lot of other things. They're more adapt. If you don't feed a dog, you're going to die. The pig's going to die. If you don't feed bees, they're going to go get some. So, you know, don't get uptight about beekeeping. Stay relaxed. You're supposed to have fun. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something else. Don't go out and try this checkerboard stuff because I said so. Because I don't want you calling me up and say, you told me to do this, and it's your fault. I'm here to give you ideas. If you're doing something and it's working for you already, don't change it. If it's not working, it's an idea. Or maybe you got 10 hives and you'd like to see how it works. Try it on one or two. You know, it looks real easy. You know, looks real easy. When you get out there with it 30 degrees and you're slinging supers and frames and stuff around, it ain't easy. Keeping the records, It ain't easy. So if you're not going to commit to it 100%, do it. Don't waste your time. Keep having fun the way you've been doing it. Okay? Don't get out there and say that idiot got me out here when it's 27 degrees and I'm out here working my honey off and I'm cold and I'm mad. I'm going to call him up and kill him. I enjoy it. You know, that's my thing, right? Does it work? I got a 95% say so that it does. Okay? And I'm going to keep working on it. I'm just that kind of guy. People tell me I'm obsessive compulsive about my bees. My wife wants me to put a cot out there next to the hives. And maybe I will. There's some places in Europe that have these, they're like spas, right? But they got beehives under the cots. You can lay on top and you can get the vibration all night. Okay, where am I at? Did y'all learn something? Everybody did? Everybody but Dale. He already knew everything already. Okay, all right. I'll put this back up. I want you to see it one more time. Did it make sense? If they see nothing, they're going to fill it up. You got a question?
The only thing, I'm new, so forgive me, it's just, I'm not a year old yet.
Okay.
You had originally 3 deeps that were up there in the diagram, and then now we have 2 shallows at the top, am I saying that correctly?
No, you had
Checkerboards, is
you had
that a
2 deeps in a shell.
I had two deeps and one, yeah.
2 deeps and 1 shallow was the original?
Yes, yeah, let's go back.
All the way.
Oh. Let's go back.
Oh, now it's stepping.
There you go.
Oh, that is a shallow, okay.
2 deeps and
Good question. Now.
You did.
It's good.
again, I heard something that you said. You said you are a new beekeeper.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do not do this with foundation. Okay, you got to have drawn comb. You put foundation in there, you know, you're going to have something that you wish you hadn't at the end. Okay, and trust me on this. If you don't do anything else, if you don't hear anything else, do not do this with foundation. Number one, it won't work. Number two, you're going to have the biggest mess that you ever had at the end, and you're going to come looking for me with a shotgun. You won't be able to pull the frames out of that box. Okay, so just so you know. Okay. Right? You have to be careful where that foundation goes, okay? If you do this right here with foundation, you asking them to screw you up. All right, back to the end. One more thing. I have one more slide. Boom. That's me. Okay? I enjoy trying to help people with their bees. Okay? If you got something you've never seen before and you can't get nobody around here, call me up, text me, give me an email. Now, what I can promise you this is I probably won't be able to get to you in 15 minutes, so don't stand out there in your hive and wait for me to answer your call. Okay? I'll call you back or I'll talk to you, but it might not be right then. Okay? Number two, one more thing, don't do. Don't take a picture of a bunch of dead bees and send it to me and say what killed them. You don't know how many times that happens. First of all, if they're dead already, I can't help you. They're dead. Secondly, there's only 4 reasons or 5 reasons that bees die. And you ought to be able to look at that and tell what killed them. Okay? You don't need me to tell you. If you open that hive up and you look in there, there's no food anywhere, no honey anywhere. All the bees got the head stuck in the hole, the tail stuck out, all the bees stuck in the cell. They starve to death if there's no honey in there. So you don't have to ask me about bees that starve. You can look at it and tell. They were sick or diseased. are parasitized. You see little black salt and pepper things all in their cells, and that's mite poop. Looks like salt and pepper sprinkled inside your cells. That's mite poop. You don't have to ask me about that if you see that. They were parasitized, which means they were probably diseased. Your cluster's too small. If you start out with a tennis ball size cluster, that's not enough bees to keep them warm when it's 20 degrees. No, not enough. You need a volleyball size. So if you got this many bees instead of this many bees, you don't have to ask me what killed them. There weren't enough bees. You're looking at, there's no brood, no sign of any eggs, no nothing. The queen wasn't laying. You had a bad queen. Okay? One of those things killed them. The bees are soaking wet. You didn't have it ventilated enough. The moisture wasn't getting out. Okay? You don't have to ask me about that, a moldy, slimy ball of bees. You know? You can figure that out and take action. At least you learn something. I don't want to tell you, you know, it's funny. You know, one thing that I found funny, I just thought of this, is if your bees die, and I ask you, why did your bees die?
Aliens.
You're gonna say, oh, the mites killed them or something like that. But if I ask her why your bees died, you know what she's gonna say? He's a bad beekeeper.
You think so?
I mean, that's what happens. If it's our bees, we say something killed them. But if somebody else's bees, we say it's their fault. And I found that to be true across the board. Everybody says that. Yes, sir.
So you said at your house your bees are about 300 yards away and you got a berm around.
I said 100, about 100, not 300.
Okay, so 300.
I meant feet, but that's okay.
And but you had a berm, they're about 1.5 degrees warmer there. If people's hives are wrapped and there's artificial heat coming in, does that affect growth 3 days? Or can it?
I wrap mine, and it could be part of why I think 48's a more accurate number than 50. You know, but it's theoretically based on the ambient air temperature and that accumulation of those growth degree days. So it could be why. I mean, I can't prove it or disprove it. Yes, I do wrap my house. Okay. What I found happens. Maybe there's somebody here that will argue with me or not, you know, but it's not going to keep bees alive. What I'm getting at is I said there's 4 or 5 things that will kill them, right? If your queen's no good, wrapping them's not going to make that queen better, right? If you only got that many bees, wrapping them's not going to make that cluster size any bigger. Or if moisture's in there, wrapping them's just going to help kill them quicker. You know, wrapping them's not going to keep bees alive. But what I have found, what my experience with this is, by wrapping them, they'll actually, in the springtime, they'll actually have a 10-day to 2-week head start on all the other bees. Now, it's interesting, and it's good, and it's bad. If you're the kind of person that don't get out there and watch them, and they're 2 weeks ahead of you, you know, they're going to be out down the road before you know what happened. If you want bees that kind of laid back, you want them to develop slowly in the spring so you have more time to control what's going on inside the hive, then don't wrap them. But wrapping them in and of itself is not going to keep them alive. That make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Again, I don't want to see no pictures of dead bees. I've seen plenty of them. But if you got something that looks like a 3-headed snake, I'd love to see that in a hive, you know. It's something that I hadn't been exposed to before, okay? So that's me. At the end, we'll put that back up and take a picture of that. And do not hesitate to ask me, call me, send me a text, okay? And I can't promise you a 15-minute response. It might be a day or 2 days or something like that, but I will get back, okay? Now, I'm going to go right into my next presentation. All right. I'm a member of the Beekeepers of Indiana, lifetime member. I'm also on the Education Committee. The Education Committee mission is to educate the people of Indiana about the honeybee, local honey, and the beekeeper. We will also provide educational resources for those interested in becoming beekeepers. That's what the Education Committee does. Now, we believe, this is a new club, right? We believe that the best way to educate people about honeybees and honey is through the local club. The club is the closest resource in their area for people to find out about it. Now, there are certain advantages if you can. There's advantages to the club. If the club is educating people who don't know anything about bees, there's advantages to the club. People in the area can become aware of who the local beekeepers are. Where do I get honey from? I'm a beekeeper. People will find out where they can buy local honey. I kind of just said that. People will learn the difference between local honey and Walmart honey. Or Chinese honey. Or something that's supposed to be honey from China. People will learn the difference. Once you taste ours, once you taste something that came out of your hive and you put it right next to that stuff and you taste it, this nauseates me when I try it. You know what I mean? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. More people will become interested in beekeeping the more they are exposed to it. People in the area will become aware that there is a club in their area, and they may even attend. More potential members for, I don't know what y'all's process is. Y'all charge for memberships? I don't know.
We will soon.
Whatever it is, more potential members if people from this club get involved in educating people outside the club. If all you want to do is come to the club, you're not helping. Okay? I hope I'm not stepping on toes too hard. Get mad at me. Now, presenting in small groups helps to educate beekeepers. Did you know that? There's an old Chinese saying, when one teaches, two learn. Okay. When one teaches, two learn. Now, there's certain support you can get. You can get support from the Education Committee. There's about 6 of us on the Education Committee, and every one of us are willing to go out of our way to help somebody. Okay? Look where I'm at right now. Okay? There's links to support materials on the Beekeepers of Education website, Education tab. There's presentations that you can do. All you have to do is go through them one time with somebody, and those presentations are there. They're on the website. And you can use them. You get support from the Education Committee members to help train club members interested in talking to small groups. People like me can come help people like you get started. Glad to do it. What are some other ideas that maybe you would like to see that would help you? Okay? That would help you educate people. What are some other ideas? Okay, you don't have to give me an answer. That's something for you to think about. And when you get my email address, you can tell me. All right, who calls the Beekeepers of Indiana for people to present? Libraries, school clubs, garden clubs, retirement homes, Rotary clubs, fairs, county fairs, state fairs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. The list goes on. And there's about 6 of us trying to do it. I'm going to tell you, there's certain times of the year, one day this summer, I had to go down to the southern part of the state, talk at a library, a church group, and a bee club all on the same day. Okay, there's about 6 of us. We have to turn stuff down. And we shouldn't. Okay. That's one of the reasons that I'm here. The question is, these are the people that call on the beekeepers of Indiana to present. Who can the beekeepers of Indiana call on in this area as a presenter? Hey, how about you? Don't everybody jump up and raise their hand all at once. If you've been keeping bees for a year, you know more about it than somebody sitting at the library. Okay? Easy enough. If you've been keeping bees for 2 years, you're a genius as far as they're concerned. Now, I know I sound like an old Southern preacher, but I'm not going to tell you to come walk down the aisle, okay? But what I would like, and I understand that there's people here that's going to say, oh, I wouldn't mind presenting, but I don't want to present to no adults. I'm okay if I present to kids. Or, I don't want to present to kids, they annoy me too bad. I'll be glad to go to the retirement village and talk. I'd like to go to the library. I got to go over there in the house sometimes. Take my books back. You know? Somewhere there's a niche for you. Okay? Now, if you have an inclination and you would like to help, write your name, number down, give me some way to contact you, and I guarantee you within a year, I'll have you set up to go talk to the library, you know, because that's how it happens. And amazingly, it all happens at once. Everybody starts thinking about bees in May. I don't get to go home from May to June. May through June. I don't get to go home, you know, because I'm out here doing this. How about it? Write down. If you don't want to do adults, write down. I don't want to do adults. If you don't want to do kids, I don't want to do kids. I won't mind talking to small groups, like a Boy Scout club. I don't want to talk to big groups. I don't want to go to the library and talk with a bunch of strangers. Tell me what you want to do. I will help you. Okay? That's why I'm here. Okay. I'm not going to bore you. Pass the plate, the collection plate, and all this stuff. Anyhow. Okay, that's it. Break time. All right. Sorry.